Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the podcast, Good Body, Good Brain. And this morning, I am so happy to have someone from Scotland. And she has such an amazing story how she became doing what she's doing. But she has a company called Build with Boundaries, and her name is Mahnaz Sharif, as in like Omar Sharif, right?
Yep.
That's her hubby's name, I think. I don't know if he's got a cousin named Omar Sharif, but anyway, she's going to tell us a little bit how she got started in Build with Boundaries, and then we're going to be taking it further and give our moms and our people listening some good tips of how to take care of themselves. So, no further ado, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Sally. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Mahnaz. Hi, everybody. We are talking about boundaries today. So my business is called Build with Boundaries. And as Sally mentioned, I am near Edinburgh in Scotland. So happy to meet you wherever you are in the world as well. I help mums who are juggling their business around their family life. Having that work-life management can always feel like a bit of a balancing act. And I'm here to help those mums to bring more harmony into their life so that they have more ease and flow, and ultimately they can be more present for themselves as well as their family. And that is done in a variety of ways. And as you can tell, boundaries are pretty key to, sustaining what we want, and that is a tool that is definitely used, which is why my business is called Build with Boundaries, and just bringing that harmony and that sense of harmony rather than this elusive balance that just never ever we never get sight of.
Right. And once upon a time, you worked in the corporate world, right?
Absolutely, yes. I've been in the corporate world for about 20 years. So I was an analyst, very logical and problem-solving background I have. And that's what I bring into my current day now, but with much more of a harmonious blend of the feminine side of understanding who you are, what you need, and being able to create. And I felt like the filling in a sandwich, where you just feel this constant pressure all around you from lots of different parts of your life and different areas. I had two young children and they were under 10, and my mum was chronically ill, and then she was later diagnosed with cancer. So there's all these responsibilities and duties that, you cannot give up on any one of them because every single one is important. And all those challenges, trying to balance, working at the same time. My husband was away quite a lot as well for business, two young children with different routines, and then my mum as well. You just don't want to compromise on anybody or anything, and you want to do what you feel is right. But often we just end up being at the bottom of the list. So I've been there. I know how that feels, and I don't want that for anyone else. And I want people to know, especially mums, that there is a way to find your own way and find that harmony in your own unique way, because what it looks like is very different for each of us.
And also too, because we're women, women tend to be the balancing act because in a lot of cultures, even if you're a corporate person, you still come home and you still have the care of the smaller children and possibly even cooking or cleaning and all those kinds of things. And so your own self-care sometimes suffer. I tell my clients you cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you don't keep your cup full, how are you going to give love and attention to anybody else?
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the most difficult things for mums to deal with, is that when they actually look after themselves, they're able to look after their children or their parents or their siblings, their partners, their home, everything better in a much more productive manner, in a much more present way. Because when we're not giving to ourselves, we really have nothing to give. And the more we can give to ourselves, we're actually giving more to others. And just understanding that putting ourselves first is actually essential. It's not selfish at all, but it is essential in what we actually want to do for others.
Sometimes I think you might have to sell that concept to a lot of women, and it varies from ethnicity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right there. Every culture, even like in our own family homes, we have created our own cultures in every single family. So no matter what background you have, what religion you have, there are always these influences that create the family culture that we decide to create for ourselves. And it is hard because mums and women in general definitely take on way more, and the guilt that they feel is just like incredible. Like, I don't think other men, dads, other relationships that you might have, they do not feel it in the same way. And because of this, it's a positive thing in the sense that it makes us who we are and able to serve others. But in some respects, it doesn't always serve us because we're holding on to this guilt. We almost feel guilty for all the things we are doing, and we feel guilty about the things we're not doing. And we feel all of those things all at once. So it can be incredibly powerful because it can just stop us in our tracks, and we actually don't do things that would be beneficial for us because we get all of this guilt feeling is definitely something that builds up.
Well, I find too that social media doesn't help us because the moms on social media have been to the makeup artist, had their hair done, have beautiful clothes on, and they're just doing everything so easy peasy. They make it look so easy. No kids ever throw up or have fevers or make a big mess in the living room, or the dog doesn't have like a little accident somewhere in the corner of the house. None of these things happen to these people on social media. So when we talk to real life people, and the real life people say, how come I'm not doing like those people? And we start to compare ourselves. And that sets us up for feeling bad about our own self esteem. So I'm sure you addressed that because you talked about each person is an individual and each individual has an idea of how their life should go.
Exactly. And I think that word you just mentioned there, what things should look like, I think that is something that we definitely need to start noticing more. And the more and more people that I speak to listen to just hear themselves when they use the word should, is so powerful, because why we think that this should has to be the next external expectation. We get to choose and we get to decide what it is that we want and what it is that we don't want. But the trouble with that is we've come down so far, we've forgotten to ask ourselves what we really want. We've forgotten to check in with our own bodies to see what it is that we need. And we've forgotten ourselves in the process to actually give ourselves that time and that space to just be ourselves. And whatever that looks like for everybody will be different, but being present, being fully present in your day, whether that is when you're working, whether that's when you're with the kids. And I think it's just incredibly powerful to understand that, what we see, especially on social media, is just one side. It's one tiny moment and a snapshot. And we don't get to see the behind the scenes. We're just getting to see what they choose to share. So we again have a choice, and it's an opportunity, if that's what's bringing us down, to have a boundary about that, right?
Yes, I said the best thing you can do for yourself is just stop watching social media. Just don't watch it anymore. Yes, they're funny puppy pictures and they're little animals, But in the meantime, you can waste whole 2 hours of your day just like scrolling on Instagram, etc. And then after you do that, you think, oh my gosh, I could have done so many things beside this. Yes, sometimes we do need to just have some downtime and relax. And that's the time we need to let our brain relax and do a little daydreaming, just let ourselves drift and listen to what our body's trying to tell us, what our internal guidance system's trying to tell us. And if we listen, life becomes so much easier.
100%. Yeah. I think creating that space feels like it's very difficult when you've got so many things on your to-do list. Everything is never ending. There's this constant treadmill of things going on. It's like, that conveyor belt never stops. But we need to put pauses in, and sometimes the most productive thing that we can do is actually just take a pause. And it's incredibly helpful because, if we change how we show up, when we show up, we can just do so much better. We can be more productive and effective. And when we're more efficient with our ways of working and ways of doing, then, we are ultimately creating or getting more time back, which means we can do more of the fun stuff that we want to spend more time on. So it does have the benefits, but when you're in this place of constantly feeling like, you're getting pushed and pulled in all directions and there's constant demands on you, it can feel very pressured. And reacting to those situations isn't the way we want to live our life. We want to be in control. So we want to actually be living more intentionally. And that means we get to choose, do we want to be on social media? Do we want to spend a certain maximum number of minutes there so that we don't get dragged into that rabbit hole?
Oh, and that is so easy. And I put that little line up there, what do I really need today? I think that might be something that you probably incorporate into your program where you ask your client, what is it that you really need? Not all the little tasks that are going on, but what do you need to feed your soul with today so that you feel more productive and more aligned, I guess, and purposeful.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's a really incredibly difficult question to answer when you're in this storm and there's just so many things going on and you really don't know how to answer it. What I've been doing with my clients, I'm not sure if you're aware of human design, but I've been using human design with my clients. So when they start seeing themselves as they truly are, and like not just seeing, like truly accepting their strengths and their gifts and seeing themselves in a different way, that helps us to understand ourselves better. And when we understand ourselves better, we understand more about what we need, right? We want to be in flow. We want to be living our potential. And all these things can only come if we are working with our gifts rather than constantly trying to do the things that we're not so good at and meeting resistance and feeling bad for not doing them very well and like doing this on repeat. So what if we could do more of the things in a better and even more effective way? That's what, human design can show us. And in case your listeners are wondering what it is, then human design is the science of differentiation and tells us how we are different. And it is based on science. It's science meets spirituality. But yeah, if you think it doesn't have much truth in it, then you can just find people who have looked at their human design. I've been sharing on my podcast too, and it's incredible. It's really, really incredible, and it's fascinating. It's still fascinating for me. I don't know if you've dabbled with it as well.
Yes. I met that lovely a person in your community, which you'll have to talk about in a minute, and she sort of specialized in human design, and it got me thinking. So I went and actually plugged in all my information, and it is it generating manifestor or vice versa?
Manifesting generator, right?
That's me. That's me.
Okay.
And that's no surprise. No surprise there, right? Um, and so I saw all the things, and it's sort of complex. They offered me a 200-page report, which I don't have time right now to look into, but I will probably later. I got it on the bucket list. But human design has become a modality that's coming to the forefront more. Like I had never heard of it except for a couple of years ago. And
Yeah.
people have been using it more and more and more to sort of show them their gifts and how to use them in their life to make their life actually easier. Instead of going against the grain, we're going with the grain.
Absolutely. That's it. That is key. And I've had a lot of curiosity and interest and lots of people engaging with my human design. The more I've been sharing, because I have been since the start of the year working with clients on human design. So I work with them to help them to understand key areas of their design, because you could go on learning about all of these things pretty much forever. But the key parts that are essential, if we just get those foundations right, and what they can do is help us to understand how we can make decisions in our life, how we can be leaning more into our gifts because we actually see them and understand them, and obviously we are going to acknowledge them and appreciate them in a different way because we see them from a different lens. And that's what's incredibly interesting. It's fascinating to see other people where you can see all their elements coming together. And my last client that I've just finished with, she is 63 years old, and she said she didn't know who she was until she looked at the human design work that we did together. So it's powerful, and it is not for a particular age or stage. I think it is
Yes.
really powerful for mums because, we're always looking for others and never get that chance to do our own thing and work out who we are.
Until the children leave the nest, and then you start to say,
Possibly.
oh, who the heck am I?
Yeah.
Self-identity gets so intertwined with the role as a mom and as a wife. So when somebody says, well, who are you really? It's a question sometimes people stumble over because they haven't taken the time to sort of reflect on what that really means.
And we never really know. I mean, we don't come to this world with a manual. We don't know. We just have to live our experiences, and our beliefs are shaped when we're very young. So there's always something that can be blocking us or stopping us from the next thing. And we can't uncover that. We can't see that. But at some point in time, just like we would want for our children, we need to look at ourselves and say, like, what do we really want? And we have got another chapter of our life. How do we want that to look? But before we can set any boundaries that help us and aid us to do that, doing this work and understanding who you truly are is really powerful, because then it comes from this place of an internal burning desire, and it is something that is deep within you rather than it feeling like it's something that's come from the outside.
Yeah, it's like an internal compass or your true North Star, the
Yeah.
place that you would travel to if you knew how to get there. So say some mom calls you or goes on your website. Um, do you have her fill out an assessment first? How do you get to know them?
Well, I have some free resources. So I have a FREEBoundary Clock, which is powerful in the sense that it's a visual representation, and you can take this worksheet and work out where your boundaries lie and really start to identify what areas you need to work on. Because that is so important for us to be able to see and identify. And often boundaries are just those sort of things that people don't want to, don't feel that they need, or there's definitely a misunderstanding with what boundaries are. So I have resources, and that worksheet helps you to change your perspective around boundaries and also show you them in a different light, which is really helpful, because if we think of them as protecting us, as protecting our time, our energy, and our dreams, then they are something that we can aspire to, and they become something that we are drawn to in a different way. And that's what I help people, different stages and different things that people will need. But from there, we can have a conversation and see what it is that you need, because again, everybody has such different circumstances, but often the underlying challenges are very similar. And sometimes people might need to learn about themselves more. Some people might need the whole piece of understanding how they can get harmony, so then this human design becomes just one part of it. There's just so much work that we can do on ourselves, and when we do that internally, then it starts to have this ripple effect around us as well. So that's always a hidden and extra benefit that mums really appreciate, because it impacts their family, it impacts their children. And when children are growing, seeing mum having stronger boundaries or being able to adhere to them, there's that respect that comes, whether that's with your clients, with your children, with people around you. They definitely, you're honouring that, and there is definitely respect in there. It's not about pushing people away.
Yes, and so many. Of course, we're back to the woman thing. And when a woman comes to me and she says, "I am so overwhelmed," and she names about 25 things she does every day, and I ask her, I said, "Well, where's your husband?" And she says, "Oh, he's always working hard and he doesn't have time to help me." I said, "Well, what are you doing? Are you sitting around eating bonbons all day?" "Oh no, no, I'm working too." And I would say, "Well, what if you ask him to give you an hour at least every weekend where you took care of the children?" I mean, the husband did.
Yeah.
"And you went off to have lunch with your best friend, or go see Granny, who's maybe a couple hours away or something, where you take off your work, and then let him back you up and take care of that." And it's an eye opener. The first thing they say is, "Oh, he would never do that." And then I say, "Well, have you ever asked him?" "Oh, he'd get mad." "Well,
Right.
how do you know? How do you know he would?" "You won't know until you ask him." And then if he does it, and she comes back after he's had the kids for 1 or 2 hours, he'll say, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know this was so hard."
I know. And also doing things together. The thing is, when we just build this thing up in our mind that it has to be done this way because it's always been this way, it doesn't really help us. So we can change these things, but there's always some mindset stuff at play. Like, we've already created the expectation of others. We're already bending over backwards doing things. We're already not asking for help. We don't know where to say no. We're just too busy saying yes and adding more things to our list. It's not really fair, and we would never want our children to do that. I think this is the other thing. We would never. What advice would we actually give to our children if they were doing that all the time, just saying yes?
And also, too, we're actually role modeling to our children
Yeah.
what healthiness looks like. And if they
Yes.
see us running hither and yon and not being very present because we're already thinking about the next thing we're supposed to be doing, then they notice when suddenly we stop and are just there and just present with
Yeah.
them. And I've had them say to their parents, like, "Where did mom go?"
It's normalizing the conversations, the roles of mom and dad, the boundaries that they see, the respect that people have for one another. All these things, children are sponges and they are going to learn way more by seeing what they see in their home than anything else. I mean, they spend way more time at home than they do at school if you just count up the hours. So just thinking of it that way can really help us see that we have to start creating change, and it has to come from us, not like looking outside to do that, because we would never ever want that for our children. I've got 4 ways I can share with you
Oh, yes.
that boundaries are essential, and 4 roles that they play. And this is quite visual, so I hope that this will be helpful for your listeners, Sally.
Okay.
First one is boundaries can be your shield. So they protect your time, your energy, and your dreams. And when you're setting boundaries, basically what you're saying is that my dreams matter and my well-being is a priority. So that's number 1. Number 2 is boundaries can be our clock, because what they can do is help us to manage our time more efficiently. We can set limits on when we work or how we work that allow us to be fully present with our family when it matters. Boundaries can also be our voice, so they are there to communicate what our needs and desires are. And then because these boundaries help us to express what's important to us, it becomes self-care and not being selfish, as we spoke about before. And last but not least, boundaries are our pathway, because what they do is they create that space for us to achieve our professional dreams without compromising on our enjoyment of raising our family. So they become like this guiding star.
Yes, I think of them sometimes like you've seen the Sherpas that work on Mount Everest to help the people who are determined to get to the top. And what they do, they don't just chisel out the pathway, they actually put ropes on either side of the pathway. And that's the boundary that keeps the client safe as they head up towards the top of Mount Everest. If they wander off, then the Sherpa says, come back, you need to stay over here. This is a safe place. This is a place where you can maximize your energy, because you want to go, the quickest place from one to the other is a straight line. And this is how you get to the next base camp. And so we kind of do that too, both as coaches and just as mentors to people, to say, okay, I'm in this area, I can be your Sherpa. I can show you the best way to get up to the place you want to go. And it'll be easier if you have a coach to take you along the way.
I love that analogy. That is so powerful. And you know what you're making me think is, when they're creating that path, when they're creating that boundary, not only is it helping them, it's also helping the people around them. Just like, in our family, when you create those boundaries, it allows you the space and allows you to understand what is and isn't within that. But it also allows the other people in your life to understand what's important to you and how they can respect those boundaries. Whether that's your children or your clients, for example. We need to have client boundaries. We need to have boundaries with everything that we do, because time is the most precious commodity we have. And the more that we guard that, and the more that we can protect it and use it intentionally, then we know what we're spending that time on. It should be thought of like a bank. We have a balance, and we want to use it in a really intentional way, so that we feel that we have given our energy to the right things in the right way for the time that we want to give.
Yes, and we always can get money. but we can't go withdraw time from somewhere else.
Oh,
We've all got the same 24 hours a day. And if you've ever heard people like Robert Kiyosaki and Grant
yeah.
Cardone and all those people, or Gary Vee, talk about what they do with their time during the day,
Mm-hmm.
and they basically use their zone of genius, and all the other sort of mundane things kind of fall away, and they either hire somebody else to do them, or they put them aside and sort of batch them and just do them all at once, instead of like, I got to do this, I got to do that. And their zone of genius allows them to expand and be able to make the big deals, make the relationships work, those kind of things. Because without the boundaries, how are you going to navigate a relationship, particularly if you're in a family situation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important in all walks of life. We've listened to plenty of successful entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders, really famous people as well, and never ever have they said never have they mentioned that boundaries have not helped them. In fact, they go out of their way saying that they have strong boundaries, and being successful and having strong boundaries goes hand in hand. So that is something that we can learn from, and we just need to look around for that evidence. There is plenty of it around to show us that if we want to live that flow, that life of ease and flow and real presence where we can be intentional, then we have to start. And we have to start with that now. And in order for us to do that, boundaries are just a tool. They are simply a way of us to get to where we want to get to. It's like, that path that you were describing earlier. They're just helping us to make that journey easier. And who doesn't want ease?
Yes, and when you have ease, and that brings in some joy, and your creative mind gets some juices flowing, and you may
Yeah,
think of a whole new thing, how to do something that you've been doing the same way for years, and figure out, oh, I don't have to do it that way anymore. That's just what my mother told me. I can decide
yeah.
now how I want to do it for me, and then I can show my daughter and ask them questions of how they want to do this thing for them.
Absolutely. We have choices in everything we do, but there are so many things that we don't take that full control. We don't hold the reins and decide how we're going to do it. We just assume that because it's been done, or we've seen how it's been done, that this is how to do it. But it's when we start questioning those things, when we start changing those things, that is really powerful, because it changes our day to day and it changes on repeat.
And do you find that setting boundaries, especially if you work at home, that over time, those setting of boundaries actually strengthens the relationship you have with your family, especially your spouse?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was at the dining table when lockdown hit. I had to leave my office, give it to my husband who had the proper job, and I was in the dining room where everybody was able to walk in and out all the time. I've got two young kids, so they were on their laptops doing homeschooling. And it's incredibly hard to not have that separation. And when it's taken away, and then your day you're just working. Like there was no start or end to my working. And that's when the penny dropped, and everybody was walking in constantly, just interrupting. They didn't feel they were interrupting, but I was trying very hard to work. And I think we need those realizations, because had it not been for that, I have my own home office now, and I truly, truly appreciate being able to shut the door at night and not, have the separation of work and home, and having that boundary, having working a 4-day week and not making that go into the weekend, not working evenings, and not giving up on those things that before felt like they just I was pressured, or I felt that pressure to do that. And I think many mums, this is the case, because they have to get up and go and pick their kids from school. But then when they come back, they're like, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. And, there is this urgency that they feel that they have to work longer. And just getting away from that, it's not easy. I've been there, and that's why I'm doing the work I'm doing, because I want to help other mums to do that. And if they want to work a 4-day week, or they want to have stronger boundaries that actually allow them to shape the life that they want, design the life, they have that power, and they can absolutely do that, and their dreams are worth it, right, Sally?
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes that 4-day work week becomes a 4-hour 4-day work week. So we don't have to put in a lot of time as well. But I think finding a support network, and you have this wonderful community that you haven't talked about yet. Tell us a little bit about your community where you dive deep instead of diving wide.
Thank you, Sally. So Connect and Nurture is a membership that I created at the start of the year. I was drawn to creating an opportunity for mums to support each other, because I think incredible things happen when we can support each other and collaborate with each other. So I've created a membership around building relationships efficiently. And as part of that, we do one networking session every month. But the networking is really just one tiny little part of the membership, because the membership is there to help mums to create a plan on how they want to follow up with people. Any networking events they go to, they'll have hundreds of notes and notepads on who they want to connect with, but then it doesn't become a priority, and it's very hard to make things a priority when you don't know what the actual result will be. But that's the whole point with relationships. You don't know what might happen. I mean, we met on, I'm sure it was a networking, Sally, and we connected since, and this opportunity wouldn't have happened if we hadn't met. So similarly, I'm trying to do this through my low-cost membership, where mums can come and have conversations, real authentic conversations, no pitches to each other. And so if you don't feel like you want to be networking, it becomes a place of practicing that as well, meeting new people and being part of a community where everybody wants to support each other, celebrate each other's wins, and potentially create the collaborations, because when we work towards that, they will happen. That's again the power of intention. And if we just keep those notepads in our drawer and never do anything with them, then those are lost opportunities and just wasted time networking as well.
Yes, and I don't know if I told you I had spent a 3-day virtual summit in Australia called the Summit Alliance. And one of the key components of that is like multiple breakout rooms, sort of like you do with your membership, and hooking up with someone that might be in addition to your team or has access to a piece of knowledge that you don't have, and you want to put it into your team building as you're helping people grow their business. And you come out with like so many different types of people. But those people that I met in your community, I think 3 of them were now friends on LinkedIn, because we connected, and I thought, oh my gosh, you're a travel agent? Oh yes, I need a travel agent. One of these days I'm actually going to end up going to Iceland. My friends are there now, my friends from Hawaii, and I'm saying, you're doing my bucket list. You're in Iceland. And now that volcano has taken off and is doing all kind of wild and crazy things up there. So they're right in the heart of it. And so we make those kind of connections. And I think through the membership, it's sort of glues people together, because they know it's once a month. And and then they set aside that time, and they know that they're going to connect with someone who can help them in some area, even if it's to say, I think you're doing too much.
Yeah, we have one more session actually in the membership, which is following up, and we actually, we're all on mute and we get on with it and do practice, what we're preaching, what I'm preaching to them, so that it's taking that action, right? Until we don't do the things, they don't happen. So yeah, and there's a whole lot of resources in there that helps people to actually create their own plan, and then this can work outside of even the networking that I do, because you want to network in lots and lots of different ways, and we are online. You can network on LinkedIn. You can network in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be just a networking room, but what we do with those connections and with those people is where some people will go out of their way and make that happen, and other people, it's not necessarily a priority, and it's difficult to prioritize when you have got too much other stuff going on. So it's
I think
really helpful.
It's a great place for introverts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah, people
that's
always
me in
say,
again.
"Oh, you're so outgoing. You're so blah blah blah." I said, "But when I need to charge my batteries, guess what I do?
Yeah,
I
alone time.
disappear. I
Yeah.
disappear. I hang
Yeah.
out with the animals." Whereas extroverts get energy from other people.
That's
They
right.
they want to go to a party. They they get all that energy from the other people. And to understand that, it is another boundary. It's just another way of understanding
Yeah.
yourself and practicing. Because if sometimes people will like go onto my LinkedIn and they say, let's have a discussion about so and so. And I don't want to buy the so and so, but it's interesting to know about it. And so I'll say, just let me look at your website for now. And there's many times where I have done that, and they probably think, oh, she's never going to call me. And 6 months down the road, I need that very thing of that person who contacted me. And
Yeah.
so I know where to find them.
Yeah. Exactly. We can make it work, and it is up to us to do that. It's just we have a lot of things to manage, and it can feel quite overwhelming to do all of the things. And that's why having a plan and working with a strategy, rather than it just being making networking meetings, that's just the start of it. That is only step one. Nothing happens at that first meeting.
Yes. And what would you tell, like maybe I know people are listening to this in many different venues because we're recording it and it's going to go on YouTube as well. And you can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, um, almost any podcasting platform. Podbeam, you can find us on there. And so if you were going to tell someone who's just listening to the podcast, who's not really here with us live, how would they begin, first of all, to figure out what good boundaries are for them? Or if they need a little help, what would they do to contact you?
Yeah, so the first thing to do to really understand where you are with your boundaries, that helps you to understand where you need to go or what you need to shift. So my free boundary clock worksheet would be the first place I would ask you to go, and that is on buildwithboundaries.com/clock. You can download it free. I would advise to print it off and walk away from your computer, go outside in nature, take some colouring pens and just spend some time to reflect on what your boundary clock looks like. And that will give you some next steps as well in terms of what you can do once you realise, what your clock looks like. So that will give you some guidance, and you can always check out my podcast, Built with Boundaries podcast, as well. Connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a DM if you want to chat. I'm always happy to chat and happy to give my perspective. Sometimes I think we are so caught up in what's happening, we can't see what's really obvious to other people. And I would love to have a conversation and help you further if you feel that you want to do that. And if you're ready, then absolutely contact me on LinkedIn. You can find me, Mahnaz Sharif. I'm sure Sally will put my LinkedIn link into the comments. And yeah, just good luck with the boundary work, because you have to start somewhere. And I think just understanding where you are will in itself gives you a lot of insights, and you might not be prepared to see what you see, but you will get something out of it of massive value in terms of your current unique situation. And that's what we all need. We need that personalized, we don't want a formula. There is no such thing. And this just gives you that opportunity to look at your life and all of your situations in a different way.
And also, we like to contact human beings. Even though COVID gave us the ability to do what we're doing now, and so it's shaped us in so many, many different ways. I think also too, I sometimes have clients that say, "Oh, I just I can't get this done. I just can't possibly get this done." And then when we sort of sit down and say, "Okay, what is it that you have to get done today?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to vacuum? Do you really, really, really have to? I mean, what would happen if you didn't?" um, and also, too, it has to do with the messages that we got from our own families, back to family culture. One of my clients, her parent was an expat, and she worked very, very hard, she and her husband, to send all three kids to college. They were the first ones in the family to ever go to college. And the mom would say to her over and over when she was little, "Sitting down and not doing anything is lazy."
Right.
So she spent the rest of her 30 years trying to do something and maybe do two or three things at once. Mm-hmm. And eventually she didn't even know who she was anymore.
Yeah.
So calming that mother's voice down, honoring it. Okay, yeah, your mom was trying to get you going in the right track. She didn't want you to just like hang out and not do anything. But it has to be, again, a balance with your boundaries as well.
Absolutely. And we learn these things so young that we don't realize what has impacted us. So doing this work on boundaries is like doing self-development work.
Mm-hmm.
It's working on you, and it's making your life better, and just managing all those things in a way that creates more ease, and it just feels more joyful, because when you bring that ease in, you definitely bring the joy as well. And being more confidently like who you actually are. So for that client you mentioned, her probably thinking all her life, well, I am lazy, is probably something that's been in her head, whether she knew it or not. And it just makes you think, doesn't it, that that's such a huge long time to carry that.
Mm-hmm.
And we are probably carrying lots of things as well that we learned from under the age of 7.
Yes, I call them mind mines, not landmines, but mind mines. They're sitting around up there, and they're kind of like in the quiet mode until somebody asks us something to do something, and all of a sudden we get this reaction, and we don't understand why we were reacting the way we are. Mm-hmm. Well, somebody had stepped on a mind,
right,
and that we didn't know we had it. It's a lot of people have these sort of concepts around money. Mm-hmm. They think that money is dirty. If you're rich, you're a bad person. And so shifting that mindset that money is just energy received and given for something that's done.
Yeah.
And then when we do have money, we can make such a tremendous impact in the world. Like yesterday, I rescued a doggie from a center that took me 7 hours to drive there. And the doggie, nobody else would have taken her. She's a pit bull. She's a big Staffordshire lab, and I know in I don't know if it's all the UK, but I know in London they actually have banned them in many places because they think that they're a bad dog. Well, in my mind, there are no bad dogs. There's only bad owners. And so I picked her up. She had scars all over her. She was about 8 years old, and she had not been given a very good life. Mm-hmm. And so she crawled in my car, and we're driving, and she immediately fell asleep. and I got her home. We already had prepared her kennel for her, which is a really big one, but I wanted to wait until to meet the other doggies, one by one. We set that boundary so that we meet the doggies one by one, make sure everybody's okay with who they are. And it seems to be working fabulously. I'm not going to let her in the backyard yet with the Great Pyrenees. She's fine with the little whippersnappers out there, and she's exploring and trying to figure out, like, heck, how did I get here? But see, when you have the extra money, you can take it and do good. So the key is to do well and then do good. Take that impact money and just move it forward to other people so they get the benefit of it. And then in the back of us is about 10 times coming at us.
100%. That's such a lovely way to think about, it is about giving and receiving. And the more good we can do, the more that money that we use, we can do more good. It just goes round and round in circles, and that's what ultimately gives us fulfillment and builds a legacy. That's the power behind the work that we do, because for the short term, it's just coming in to pay the bills and do the things that might not seem very interesting or very exciting, but the excitement is that other things that you could never ever have done before that you get to do. And that's amazing. I love your story about the dog. Well done. It's such a long drive, but I'm sure you're feeling happy about it, I can tell.
Well, it gave me confirmation that I actually can drive 14 hours in one day and not go crazy. I didn't feel tired when I got home. I would just sit in with my new puppy and sat with her in her kennel just to kind of get her adjusted. And I was so happy I had her that I had gotten her away from the shelter. The shelter I took her from wasn't a kill shelter, but there were plenty of other dogs in an adjacent shelter. And because of all the storms, dogs have gotten lost, and people, and also economically, people are saying, I just can't afford all this money on dog food and vet bills. And dogs are being dumped in the street in many, many places. I know in America, especially right now.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Well, we can be light workers, and we can help other people show their light, take that bushel off their light and show it, and then they can have a much more joyful life. And I so appreciate you coming today. All the way, you had to fly all the way from Scotland. Oh my God!
Thank you so much, Sally. It's been such a great conversation. Thank you for the invitation. I've loved our conversation.
And I'm going to put all your information in the show notes for this podcast, Good Body, Good Brain, and you can listen it on most all major channels: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, just about any one of them. Listen notes, you can find us. And please contact Mahnaz if she would love to talk with you. Even just send her a DM on her LinkedIn link, which will also be in the notes. So for today, thank you so much. I have enjoyed you thoroughly. You're a delight. And I know that you're going to continue helping people, especially moms, kind of get their life back. And that's really important.
Thank you, Sally.
So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.